Hangout on Air is now live.
Woot!
So, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Anyone? No one is viewing yet because it just literally started, so people have not even had time to click on it. But those of you watching this later will hear this extra special bit, so this is just for you.
Exclusive.
So,
Live from all of our hidden layers.
Indeed.
I even have a cat somewhere around here, so I'm hopefully
Yes.
I'll do the full Bond effect and have the cat. I'm sure this is
So-
how, yeah. See, this is how Blofeld gets his cat treats.
Me and my pet zebra shall rule the world.
My little corgi is wandering around somewhere. She will bark at something during the recording, so anyone who's worried about whether that might happen or not, fear not. I guarantee it.
If you hear a screaming baby, that's what he does.
Yep. So, in any case, what is this? What are we doing here? Well, this is basically just an outgrowth of me feeling like there's a lot of superhero stuff going on, and that's kind of exciting, but I also like talking about what does this all mean? You know, what is it about superheroes that is so interesting? Why are they bigger now? And of course, the question that led to the title here, you know, are we at peak superhero? Given how many there are going on, you know, in movies and TV and comics right now, it's got a lot of people saying, well, is this a bubble? Are we going to be at, you know, how much superhero is too much superhero?
Ooh,
Is there such a thing?
question.
And so those kinds of questions is just what made me feel like I want to talk about this with people. And so I rounded some people up to talk about this stuff. So the people that we have here tonight are people in the Venn diagram of people that I knew would be awesome in this discussion and people who were available tonight. So you guys represent the critical overlap
Some serious
of those two
street cred
circles.
we buy here. We were available.
We could get here.
And you were awesome.
We were the best of the available.
Best of the
Yeah,
available.
that's right. There's probably
Avengers, assemble!
available,
If
but not
you got the time, you know.
We won't question whether or not we're the only ones available, but we'll assume we're the best of.
Well,
Robert
so
Downey Jr. couldn't be here, so oh well.
I did not ask literally everybody in the world.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Break that down, continent, then country.
Yeah, so you guys were already on the short list. But so, in any case, I figure, should we, what, do you guys want to introduce yourselves? I could do it for you. What do you think?
Why don't we just keep it simple, introduce ourselves, and since I'm talking, I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm T. Morris.
I could use the royal we there for the beginning. Since we're talking, I mean, I'm talking.
You're not talking, Jared. But I like steampunk, and I've actually written some superhero fiction, and I'm looking at my white wall of ideas, and I have a superhero comedy that I want to write. But I've been a superhero geek since I was a wee lad, and I remember the days of Bill Bixby hulking out into Lou Ferrigno. So that gives me a little bit of street cred there. Next.
Oh, are you done?
I got it. I know, it was too brief,
Anyway,
wasn't it, Axelrod? You're expecting me to go on, weren't you?
I'll go next. How about that? My name is Chris Morse. My cred is that I created a Parsec Award-winning podcast called Supervillain Corner. Sort of looked at the other side of things, but it's the same world, supervillain and superheroes, although all of my superheroes are assholes. Although that may or may not be true of regular superheroes. That is my silly little cred. I don't go back to Lou Ferrigno. I remember The Greatest American Hero. I would watch that. And then
Believe it or not.
The 90s Flash, which my wife got me the DVD last Christmas so that I could enjoy it anytime I wanted to. when I'm not watching the current Flash, which I'm not watching right now, which I want to point out to everyone. That's how good this conversation is going to be. I am missing the Flash.
Yes, I do
my
want
God.
to thank everybody, both in this conversation and anyone watching live. I want to thank you for choosing to DVR The Flash and potentially Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In order to watch us live.
That's how much I love you, Christiana. I want you to know that. Anyway, that's me.
I watched The Flash late anyway, so this is not affecting me one bit. I'm Jared Axelrod. I do a webcomic called Comrade Cockroach Avengers about a supervillain who has just the same trials and tribulations we all do. Love of a psychopathic supervillain who tries to kill him repeatedly. Being unable to kill his nemesis, a superhero. Feeling old. All of these things that Comrade Cockroach experiences, so do we. In addition to that, I've done presentations on the nature of Batman, on Resha Sentai Tokuger, which is a Japanese superhero show and is a waking nightmare. I definitely recommend everyone see that at some point because it's crazy. But it's one of those things that's weird to recommend because it's so crazy. It's not for everyone. As well as I just love comic books and superheroes and think about them far too much. So I'm excited to think about them out loud as opposed to just in my head.
If any of us get a chance, we really should check out Jared's library because it really is the Library of Congress of comic books. It's an awesome library. It's very intimidating.
So, I am Christiana Ellis, and other than just this thing being my idea, I am a superhero enthusiast. I've not done a lot of superhero-related fiction, although I did write a short story featuring Dr. Mercury, which is one of the characters from the Comrade Cockroach universe. Is Dr. Mercury a shared creation, Jared?
Well,
or?
Dr. Mercury and Comrade Cockroach and the characters that are in Chris's supervillain corner are all part of this kind of shared casual universe.
Very
called
casual.
Terraverse, and there's overlaps, and it's very loosey-goosey. I think everyone's kind of agreed that if one of the other creators does something we don't like with our characters, that's an alternate world.
Mm-hmm.
That's clever.
Well, superheroes are good for that sort of thing.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that's the beauty of the flexibility of superhero stories is we can have that.
There's always Earth Fee. There's always Earth Fee.
Right.
Dr. Mercury was created by my wife, J.R. Blackwell, and that's part of the reason why she and Comrade Cockroach, my character, have a relationship. But also because they're good foils for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she's appeared in Supervillain Corner. There's characters in Supervillain Corner that are in the background of an upcoming Comrade Cockroach comic when he goes to Supervillain prison. I have a plan. Hopefully, I will write it and send it to Chris for an upcoming episode of Supervillain Corner with Comrade Cockroach. So there's lots of overlap. I wouldn't say incestuous.
I was going to say incestuous.
Well, then we'll say incestuous.
In all the best ways.
So we do have a couple of live viewers, and Brian Weber has left a comment on the events page on Google Plus saying, "I was too young for Greatest American Hero. My apologies to everyone for making them feel old." That seems like a sorry, not sorry to me.
Actually, my first experience. No, I should say my first experience with superheroes that were not comic book related. I remember as a kid watching in reruns the original George Reeves Superman.
Oh.
I've never seen that show.
Wow.
It's a hole in my knowledge.
It really is. The cool thing about Superman with George Reeves was I originally saw it in black and white, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And then the color years came in, and I'm like, holy cow, they shot this in color? And I'm thinking this is a kid. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world, which is why I really believe it's why one of my favorite movies features Ben Affleck as George Reeves. It's Hollywoodland. And there's a moment in Hollywoodland where I forgot I was looking at Ben Affleck and I thought I was seeing George Reeves, because in every episode, George Reeves would always lean forward and he goes, "Well, the city's safe again, thanks to," and he'd wink at the camera and he'd go, "Superman." And Ben Affleck knocked that impersonation out of the park so well. I honestly thought I was looking at George Reeves. It was stunning performance.
So, as an interesting bit of trivia that just makes Ben Affleck probably the first guy to play both Superman and Batman.
Yes.
Sort of.
So, yeah, sort of, yeah.
Well, I should say then...
You can lean into it.
Yeah. I mentioned Greatest American Hero. Technically, the first that I remember superhero story, and I feel like I might be cutting it close, but I think this counts. The first movie I ever remember seeing in the theater was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original classic, and they're superheroes. They are superpowered heroes. Mm-hmm. They have costumes. They don't need them, but they have costumes. And I remember loving, and I still watch that movie to this day, and I absolutely love it. And it encompasses everything, I think, about good superheroes. But we'll get into that, or not. Well,
it's certainly true that no matter how long we talk tonight, there's no way we're going to cover everything that we could possibly discuss about superheroes. So no need to have that. I'm just going to go ahead and let that pressure out right now. So I did have a vague structure in mind for this, and what I thought we would start with is just kind of a quick review roundup. This is lightning round because this is not intended to be the bulk of the show, but just kind of a where are we at. So I'm going to talk about a number of the, in current production or current discussion superhero properties out there, and we'll kind of just go around and so have each of you give no more than a one-sentence review of that property. And, of course, I haven't seen it is a perfectly acceptable answer.
Fair enough.
The whole point of the whole thing is that there's so much that we're getting to the point where nobody, no matter how enthusiastic they are, is going to be able to see all of it or everything. So if you haven't seen something, there's no nerd shaming here tonight.
There's a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning we will nerd shame, but not now.
Well, you're free to nerd shame yourself alone in your room after this conversation is over, but I would discourage that.
How did you know that?
You go blind that way.
So in any case, so let's start with the CW TV shows. Flash. Chris.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's everything I want in a superhero television show. I wish the costume were brighter red. Other than that, it's perfect.
Nice. Jared?
It's very enjoyable. It's not quite perfect, but it is so much fun. It's hard to criticize it in any seriousness. I could, but I don't have the enthusiasm to do that. It's just a lot of fun. And they gave me Gorilla Grodd, so how can I argue with it?
T?
After watching Arrow, The Flash is a great antithesis to it. It's just so much fun. And it became even more fun for me because I also remember the 1990s Flash and the fact that they actually got the actor to play Barry Allen's dad. What a great touch of meta. That's just brilliant programming right there. And I've seen the Flash up to, I was watching it on the flight to New Zealand, and I saw it only up to where Barry has lost his power. So I think I'm just going to go on ahead, go all in like I did with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., buy the season pass off of iTunes, and just watch it because I love the show. I wouldn't do that for Arrow, but I would do that for The Flash.
So, excuse me, goodness. So on that note, that's a good point to maybe bring up. Let's try to just keep the discussion largely spoiler-free, just because not everybody has seen everything yet, and so if we need to bring up a specific plot point to as a part of discussion later, then maybe we can get into it with a spoiler warning. But generally, let's try to stay away from that because that's that's part of the whole appeal, right? Is the surprises.
Yes.
So, my own take on Flash, largely the same as you guys. I had a couple of quibbles about things like keeping supervillains in prison without due process and not telling people things that they have a right to know for extended periods of time. But the show is super fun. It's hard to complain too much about nitpicking a show that is as fun as this one is.
I have a headcanon about the prison. They're only keeping them there until their trial.
Okay.
Once the trial happens, they will either be continued to be kept in the prison or they will be let loose, but they are just being kept there until trial, as many prisoners are in our overworked justice system.
How do they go to the bathroom?
Unless they're making some bank off that for Star Labs, because that could, he could be making, that could be a lucrative thing for Star Labs, a super villain prison,
I will say this, there was, on the most recent episode, there is a deleted scene they posted online that explained how they got fed. So at least they're acknowledging that it's kind of absurd that they're just keeping them locked in these boxes. So
they're very small. I mean,
yeah.
Flash is really good at using its limited sets to its greatest advantage.
Yeah.
But the closets they stick people in the supervillain prison is a little silly.
So we're already starting to get off track. So I'm going to remember lightning round or speed force round. How about that? Speed force round? Huh?
Speed force round.
So it was already mentioned once, but Arrow. Let's start with T.
It's at its best when it doesn't when it's dark, it's gritty. I do like it. I didn't think I would like it, but I like it a lot. It's only when I think sometimes that they let the angst linger a little too long. That's when it starts to lose me. I'm like let's get back to shooting arrows and John Barrowman being a badass. So yeah. But I still watch it. It's good for the elliptical.
Jared?
Did not like the first season. Loved the second season. Lukewarm on the third, but I stick with it because Green Arrow is one of my favorite characters, even though the Green Arrow on the show is not the Green Arrow I enjoy. I hope that one day he will be. In my imagination, it seems like they're moving toward that in a very slow way. Like maybe in season 5 we'll finally get the Green Arrow that I know and love. We'll see.
Chris?
My first memory of Arrow was working on NaNoWriMo with headphones in while my wife watched it and ogled the abs of Mr. Stephen Amell. I then went back, watched the first season, liked it. Second season, loved it. Third season, which we're in now, it's best when it doesn't take itself so seriously. It should take itself more seriously than The Flash does, but when it goes way past that, it's a little. And they should stop stealing from Batman. Because it seems they're trying to make Green Arrow Batman. And Green Arrow is not Batman, Green Arrow is Green Arrow, and they should go with that. But anyway.
But Green Arrow doesn't have any good villains. I say this as a Green Arrow fan.
You can give them the villains, just don't make Green Arrow Batman, that's all.
Again, I'm largely on the same page as you guys. I actually, when I first started watching season 1, I gave up on it. I did not like how many henchmen he was killing, only to leave the rich guy leader off with a stern warning that you better give that money back, mister, after having killed 12 guys who were probably just getting a paycheck. But at the same time, lots of people told me it gets better, and they were right. It gets way better. Season 2, loved it. Season 3, I feel like the League of Assassins is maybe it's too ambitious for the scale of the show they've got, because I just feel like they're not doing it justice, and I don't like where they've got the story currently. Without going more into it, I don't really like what's happening right now. But on the whole, still definitely watching it. Brandon Ruth is Ray Palmer is great, even though he's not shrinking for some dumb reason.
He's Iron Man, Adam.
Yes. All right. Next up, Netflix's Daredevil. Chris.
Wow. That's my whole review right there. I'm so impressed. I love Charlie Cox and seeing him in Stardust, which is underrated, gorgeous, wonderful. Everything. Vincent D'Onofrio. I can't go on. The fights. That's all I'm going to hit on. The fights. It is the sexiest fight choreography that I have seen in a television show, even though it's a Netflix show. It is. I want more, and I really hope the rest of the Netflix shows that they're coming out with are as good, because I loved it. It's one of my favorite television series of all time.
Ooh.
Now that's in benefit of having seen it recently, so that could change. But yeah,
I'm watching it. I'm rewatching it right now, Chris. No, that's not going to change.
Okay, good.
All right, T. You jumped in there. Do you have any more you wanted to say, or?
Well, my first introduction to Daredevil was Rex Smith when he played Daredevil opposite of John Rhys Davies' Kingpin in The Trial of the Incredible Hulk in 1986. That being said, when they said they were doing Daredevil, I thought, "Oh crap, this is gonna be tough, isn't it?" And I was completely blown away by just how good. And I'm like I said, I'm rewatching it again, and I'm just it gets better. Any superhero property that takes a page from the True Detective Playbook on how to fight, how to shoot a fight scene, a continuous fight scene, that gets high marks for me. So yeah, Charlie Cox for the win.
Mm-hmm. Jared?
Oh, I thought it was great. It really finds its footing in the second episode. But what's great, I know everyone loves the action sequences, and the action sequences are marvelous. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. But what I love about it is, finally, in addition to having a villain who we understand and are interested in, because so often in these television shows and movies of superheroes, the villains get a short shrift, that they are merely there to provide antagonism elements. We actually spent some time with the villain and figure out what makes them tick, which was wonderful. But beyond that, it is a smaller scale superhero story, which has been wonderful, because so many stories are about the end of the world, which I understand. It's a superhero story, it's high opera, it's supposed to be big, but it was really nice to see a superhero story about a guy's neighborhood. And just like, yeah, these 10 blocks, I'm fighting for those. And for it to be effective in that way. Mm-hmm. Because Daredevil not having godlike abilities, for him to have a smaller story works a lot better. And it made it a much more intimate and also a different superhero story than we've been getting. Mm-hmm. And I could go on, but that's not the point of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So, once again, we're all on the same page. I thought it was great, and in particular, I don't want to say it spoiled anything else, but it's more just a matter of kind of this breath of fresh air of like, oh, like you almost don't realize that you've been putting up with some stuff in other things until you see it done the way that it's done here, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I feel like almost every other show I can think of has the parts that you live with in order to get to the parts that you love, but I felt like this one was just all parts that I loved, both in the superhero action parts but also the character parts. All right, next, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's start with you, Jared.
I don't really like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that much.
Fair enough.
I'm watching it, and I'm enjoying the more recent episodes a little more than the first season, which I hated. I liked everything with Patton Oswalt. Was thumbs up. Love the lanyard jokes. Can't get enough of those. And I like the stuff that they're doing now with the Inhumans. And that's the real reason I'm continuing to watch. It's not what I thought it was going to be, which is not a valid criticism, but it's also I'm not sure it works on its own terms. But Clark Gregg is fun. I'm strangely into his relationship with Skye. They've worked that out magically. I don't know when that happened. It did. It was incredibly awkward for a whole season and a half, and now it works. So good job, guys. So it's not my favorite. It's not appointment television, but I am watching it because I'm curious where it's going.
How about you, T?
I will respectfully disagree with Mr. Axelrod because and to give you an idea of how much I was looking forward to this, I'm missing our family time, which is we gather around the television as a family and we watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. together. It is the only show that me, my wife, and our child, we will literally gather around the television and we will watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. together. And it all started when we started watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. together and we loved it. But then we kind of fell off the rails on it, and then we went to go see The Winter Soldier. And at the end of The Winter Soldier, it was you could not have written comedy like this. We just looked at each other, and it was like we broke up the question between the three of us. Wait a minute, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., how are they going to wrap this up? All three of us said something different in that one question. We ran home, tried to find it online, couldn't, and I said, screw it, let's just get the season pass. I got the season pass. And then we mainlined, like, after going through the roller coaster ride that was Winter Soldier, we rewatched the 5 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and we love the show. Now, I personally think the reason why some people were disappointed in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was they were expecting something like Daredevil, some kind of superhero of the week. Mm-hmm. This is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm as much as I love superhero stuff, I'm a bigger fan of spy stuff. So to me, this is like Man from U.N.C.L.E., this is James Bond, but it's done Marvel style. And I think what I enjoy the most about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the way everything, even Daredevil, everything is written. Marvel just has that ability of writing everything together. Yeah, I know. I'm coming. Don't pretend that they can't hear us. You want me to come in?
One of those wonderful standardized tests tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. The monkey's already come out and done the standardized test pep rally, but I will just wrap up my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by saying it's our family time. We dig that. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go tuck in the child.
All right. Aww. So, what about you, Chris?
I liked it from the beginning. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. It was enough that I was like, okay, this is good. It was not my favorite thing in the world. It was better than other things that I would watch on TV. And when Tuesday nights came around, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I enjoyed the episode. Winter Soldier happened. The tie-in happened. It got, in my mind, infinitely better. It suddenly became great. It went from like, oh, this is a good show to, holy crap, what's going to happen next? A certain character who did a face heel turn became infinitely more entertaining and interesting suddenly, and that continues to this day. Season 2 is good, is very good. Not quite as good as that second half of Season 1, but still good and quality. I like it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the Marvel comic book that is sort of set in the Marvel universe, the comic universe, but based off the television show as well. So if you're a physical comic book fan, you should pick that up too, because that's a lot of fun.
I'll agree that I feel like the peak so far, or the highlight of its run so far, has definitely been the episodes that immediately followed Winter Soldier. Season 2 for me, I like. I've never hated the show, but I've been lukewarm in spots. I still really enjoy it, and I'm not remotely close to not watching it anymore. But there's definitely points where I'm kind of like, I'm not sure about that. Usually it's plot points or just a direction that they decide to take a character in that's like, I'm not sure it feels unrealistic necessarily, but it also seems to be trending away from having the show be fun, which seems like an odd decision to make for me. But in any case, though, we're getting away from the lightning round again, which I knew was going to happen. But yes, as a reminder, the next one will probably be less of a problem in that regard, specifically just because I suspect that few people other than me have even seen it. And that is Powers, the Sony Entertainment PlayStation Network original show based on the comic book by Brian Michael Bendis. Has anyone else seen it?
I haven't, though I want to, because I'm a fan of the book, and I love the casting that they've done. So I do want to see it, I just haven't.
I have not, because I basically put this out there. Unless it's the greatest television show of all time, I am not buying a PlayStation and subscribing to a specific network just for that one show. I will catch it later.
You do not have to buy a PlayStation. You can watch it online.
Oh, you can? Okay. But still,
and the pilot's on YouTube if you wanted to test it.
I might do that. I have, but at the same time, we buy enough streaming video services that I can't justify getting another one just for that one show. So
yeah. Well, I have watched the whole first season, and what I can say is that as the Vanguard series for Sony's new original programming, I'm not sure it's the one to convince everybody that they should sign up. I like lots of things about it, but it also feels like really low budget compared to some of the other things we've talked about, especially Daredevil, which I'm kind of watching them in overlap. T, we're talking now about Powers. Damn
it! I haven't seen this yet, and I'm itching to see it. I love me some Charlton Copley.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you like. He was the A-Team movie was awesome. Charlton Copley brought it as Howling Mad Murdoch. I will watch that movie over and over and over again for him and for the Neesons as Hannibal Smith, because they're having the time of their life. So is it good? Is it good?
I'm glad that I watched it, but I will say that it's as I was just saying, it feels low budget compared to some of the other shows that we've talked about.
Okay.
It's doing a lot with having powers, but wanting to try to do the effects on the cheap.
Right.
And you feel it in the production, which is a little bit disappointing.
Like early seasons of Hercules and Xena, then.
I didn't really ever watch those early seasons, but I imagine, yeah. So at the same time, though, the show's got a lot of really interesting ideas and good performances and good writing. So there are good points to kind of compensate for it feeling a little bit cheap in terms of the production. So I'm glad I watched it, but I would also not say that it's a must-see necessarily. Next up, and again, this would be another one that could easily go on forever if we let it, so we're not going to let it. Avengers: Age of Ultron. Chris.
I liked it quite a lot. Not as good as the original, in my humble opinion, but quite good. I felt it was very dark visually, just like they had a filter over the lens, like everything just felt. Maybe it was the theater I saw it in, but it just felt like very, very dark, and I missed the brightness of the original Avengers. But a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Would see again. This is how I grade movies nowadays: is will I get a babysitter so that I can go see it? We got a babysitter so we can go see it, and I wouldn't be against getting a babysitter to go see it again.
All right, Jared.
Doesn't do everything it tries to do, but I would rather watch an ambitious movie that fails than an unambitious movie that succeeds. I'm
How
being
about
sure.
you, T?
I liked it more than the original Avengers. I felt that the script sounded and felt more like a Joss Whedon script. What I felt I was lacking in the first Avengers, I got in the second Avengers. I'm getting really burned out on people backseat directing Joss Whedon. I felt his. Not only did I really enjoy his treatment of Black Widow, and not only did I really enjoy Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of Black Widow, I'm a little disappointed that people are not talking more about the scene where at this swanky Tony Stark party you got the babes, you got the high players, and then you got these World War II vets that are treated just as respectfully as everybody else in the damn movie. So I have major props for Age of Ultron. My only hang-up is because I watched Blacklist, I felt like it shouldn't have been called Age of Ultron. It should have been called Age of Reddington, because I felt like that's all we got was James Spader doing Reddington from the Blacklist. But I was okay with it because it was Marvel's Raymond Reddington, so I was okay with that.
Well, James Spader is one of those actors that doesn't have to act anymore. He can just say the lines. It's like Jeff Goldblum and.
I was thoroughly tickled by hearing James Spader come out of a giant robot on screen. That was enough different for me. My thoughts on the movie is, like, I feel like the more I think about it, the more I even like it, and it's not like I didn't like it before. But I will certainly say it is very dense and very hurried in many places, and I don't think I don't blame it for having too much in it, because there wasn't anything in it that I didn't want there. It's almost more like I want to see this 1 hour longer cut, because that feels in my head like that's the real movie and we got to see the condensed version. And so I don't know what the real, the longer one is really like, but I felt like I liked everything that was there. But there was just so much of it, and it was just so rapid fire that it's hard to digest all at once.
It's like going to a fondue restaurant. Every course is good, but man, is it heavy.
Yeah. So, next item. This is going to be a little bit less specific, but let's talk about comic books, the source material of all of this superhero stuff. So how about just name a current favorite Marvel comic? And again, not reading any is an acceptable answer. Although I know at least some of you are. So Chris, current Marvel comic.
Ms. Marvel, the current run by C. Willow Wilson, with Kamala Khan, the young Pakistani American, who is a inhuman shapeshifter. I love this book. It hits all. I mean, it is fresh while at the same time being very, very familiar to, I think, a lot of fans. I didn't read a lot of comics when I was really, really young. Like, I read them, but I read them sporadically. I didn't follow them. I didn't have a pull list. And then recently in college, I started getting a pull list. So I didn't grow up with the Peter Parker story. I know the Peter Parker story, but I didn't grow up following it. And now I feel like I'm almost getting it through Kamala Khan. Not to say that it's a copy of Peter Parker, but it's that similar themes and sort of similar young person sort of coming to terms with the fact they have power and what are they going to do with it, or are they going to be a good person, and yes, this is going to be a good person, and I love seeing that sort of journey. So, love it.
Nice. How about you, Jared?
I'm a trade waiter, so I haven't read anything that's
well,
current.
whatever's new.
But my favorite one that's of the last couple of years is Matt Fraction and David Aja's Hawkeye, which I just adore. To all else, because of a lot of this, again, it's those smaller stories which I like, but in addition to that, they do a lot of great stuff with comic book layout in some subtle ways and some unsubtle ways, and they had a whole issue that was from the point of view of the dog. So just from a combination of, like, what can we do with comics plus fun normal guy superhero stories, it can't be beat.
Nice. How about you, T? You reading anything?
I'm not reading anything from Marvel, and I just happened to glance over my shoulder to look at my humble collection of bound collections and issues and things like that, and I'm finding that a lot of my stuff is DC based.
Well, that's okay. I'm going to come back around with DC. So,
but I was going to say that my most recent read, and for a while there, I fell off the rails with reading comics. I've always loved reading comics, but I just kind of got out of the habit of doing it, and I can honestly say, not only did he get me into steampunk, but Jared Axelrod also got me back into reading comics. And my last read was a wonderful read from IDW Comics called Wild Blue Yonder. I am 3 episodes into it. I need to go to my local comic book store, which is Comics and Gaming, over at Comics and Gaming in Gainesville, Virginia. And Comics and Gaming, they've got I know they've got the last they should have at least the last 2 episodes. It was a 5-episode run, and it's a wonderful steampunk, dieselpunk, nitty-gritty but beautifully realized apocalyptic throw together. I'm really enjoying it, and that was my last read, which is Wild Blue Yonder.
Fair enough. I was going to come with a third pass for non-DC or non-Marvel, but that's good too.
I will say I almost picked up Frank Miller's Bound Daredevil because we had just finished Daredevil, and we finished it around Free Comics Day. And when we went to Comics and Gaming, I saw a bound version of Frank Miller's Daredevil, and I almost picked that up, but instead we bought the game. I believe it's called Red Dragon Inn, which is a game I've been itching to get, so I went on ahead and picked that up instead.
My Marvel recommendation, although I definitely also like both Ms. Marvel and Hawkeye quite a bit, but I'm going to say the Jonathan Hickman run of both Avengers and New Avengers that has been leading to the current, the initiation of the new Secret Wars event that Marvel is doing. It's a whole lot of comics to get through, but I've been reading them since issue 1 of both of those titles. The current issue 1 of the current volume, not like in the entire Avengers history. But the run of both of those and the way they kind of in and out of each other and the way they've both been building up to this big event has been really pretty cool. Jonathan Hickman's really good with that, having these really long-running, slow-build progressions that are nonetheless interesting even as you go. As far as a not Marvel or DC, I'll come back to the rest of you guys to do that too. But since T started us on that, I'm going to say Rat Queens, which is debatably not superheroes, but is super fun anyway. It is. They're an all-female gang of mercenaries in a sort of super stylized fantasy world where there's dwarves and elves and magic and smidgens, which are kind of like hobbits, and yet everyone is super sarcastic and crazy, and it's just a super, super fun comic. Highly recommended, even if it's maybe only debatably superhero related. How about you, Jared?
Probably non-Marvel DC, still superheroes. I would have to go with the Young Protectors, which is a comic my wife loves, and I'm catching up with on her. It's about a young superhero and an older supervillain who have a clandestine gay relationship that they have to keep in the closet, so to speak, not because they're gay, but because they don't want their respective teammates to find out they are sleeping with the enemy. It is really well done and very cute. And
what's it called?
It's called The Young Protectors. It's on Yowie 911. Yeah, Yowie 911. and it is wonderful. It is absolutely charming and has everything you look for in a superhero story, plus really well-drawn, good-looking men making out. So, bonus.
How about you, Chris?
Non-Marvel, non-DC, and still superhero. I'm looking at one of my bound issues over there, Invincible, from Image by Robert Kirkman, who gave us The Walking Dead. But Invincible, I guess, and I didn't know thinking about this, but I guess I really am into that sort of young person coming to term with powers in the world that they live in, or being given that power, because that's what Invincible is. It's Mark Grayson, sort of, who is the son of the greatest superhero in the world, basically his world's Superman, and then suddenly he's 16, he finds out he has powers now too. And how does he deal with sort of that revelation, and what does he do? And he doesn't always do the right thing, and he doesn't always know what the right thing is, and he makes huge mistakes. And it's fun in that way because he's not the Boy Scout, he's not the super detective. He's a kid with a pretty good head on his shoulders who F's up a whole lot, but usually tries to do the right thing, and it's bloody, and there are consequences, and the art is great, and it's just a lot of fun.
Nice. So for DC, I think my DC pick right now is that I really enjoyed the recent Endgame run in the primary Batman title, written by Scott Snyder, with a big epic confrontation, as if there's any other kind, between Batman and the Joker. But this one had a real scale to it and a sense of finality to it, which is reasonable given that DC is going to reboot its universe again with Convergence. So leading into that is the perfect opportunity to just blow everything up. So I really enjoyed that. How about you, T?
Well, looking at my library, the biggest investment that I've made DC-wise, I was... and it was kind of sad because I really got my hopes up. Sadly, I was going through the bound collection of the Darkest Night with the Green Lantern. I've always had a soft spot for the Green Lantern, and this series, going through the bound volumes of Blackest Night, really showed me two things. One, I was horribly out of touch with comics. Wow, was I out of touch with comics. Two, if you really want epic, you just gotta dive into one of these because everybody was in Blackest Night. It was like a who's who of the DC universe, and it was a lot to take in. It was very dense, as we were talking about with Age of Ultron. And I was doing this because I was preparing for the Green Lantern film. And, yeah, well, moment of silence.
Well, at least you got to read some comics.
I got to read some serious comics, yeah. And I stepped away, and then, of course, as I said, I stepped away from it for a while, and then Jared brought me back. He brought me back.
I'm glad I could rescue you from a combination 1-2 punch that is the Blackest Night and the Green Lantern.
Nice.
Good. Feels good.
So, Jared, what about you?
I haven't bought any DC comics since the New 52. That stuff just really is not for me. I understand it's for a lot of other people. There's a lot of people whose opinions I respect who enjoy it, and I'm glad they're enjoying it. It's none of it seems to work for me except this one, which was a one-shot when they were doing the multiverse thing. Yeah. So this is before the convergence that they're doing right now, where they just did little one-shots of other universes. And damn it, this book is amazing. Grant Morrison is one of my favorite writers, but I will be the first to admit that he is hit and miss sometimes. But everything is knocked out of the park. Cameron Stewart is one of his best collaborators, and he knocks it out of the park. Everyone is having so much fun with playing in the Captain Marvel universe, and it's phenomenal. So that's money well spent. That's the
Captain Marvel or Shazam?
Well,
just to open a can of worms there that is inappropriate for a lightning round discussion. Never mind, I didn't say anything. Yes.
It's almost All
right. I am gonna cheat real fast. The DC cheat because I just recently reread the great, what in my opinion is the best Flash story of all time, which is The Return of Barry Allen, which you should go out and pick up. It's by Mark Waid. Barry Allen was
The Return of Barry Allen just to screw with you in the case that wasn't what you were going to say, but I'm glad it was.
Yes.
Sorry.
The Return of Barry, it's phenomenal. It is not The Return of Barry Allen, but it is The Return of Barry Allen.
Don't spoil it for people.
I won't spoil it for people, but you need to pick it up and read it. It is a Wally West story when Wally West was the Flash, and it is, read it. Oh my god. But my cheat is a recent, and it's this, which I just got the most recent, which is the New 52 Wonder Woman. And I've been picking up the trades of the run by Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Love the art, love the run, love the fact that the God of War, Ares, is drawn to look like Brian Azzarello, which is a great little hilarious bit. But it is unlike other superhero books because it's Wonder Woman, and I think the best Wonder Woman stories, at least in my opinion, or my favorite ones, are when she deals with the Greek mythology and the sort of the gods and the goddesses and sort of deals with that BS that is her backstory. BS and that's always just causing her grief. That's what I loved about the animated Wonder Woman story movie that they came out.
Oh, that was great.
Which I loved, and it was her fighting Ares. And I'm like, that is what we need to see. I enjoy it when she beats up Cheetah. I enjoy when she involves herself with these other characters. But the best is when she's against these gods and goddesses. And the whole Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang run is her dealing with the Pantheon and this New 52 universe where she's not the Clay Baby anymore. Spoiler alert. But pick it up. It's awesome. I love it.
Have you read Dr. 13, Architecture and Morality by the same creative team?
No.
You should pick that up.
I should.
Would love it.
Email me that, please.
Yeah, because it's Dr. 13, who's one of the greatest characters in the DC universe, because he is a skeptic and refuses to believe in magic and aliens despite living in the DC universe where everyone loves Superman. So he goes through a storyline which is about other characters like him who are just kind of this weird, offbeat, the Ghost Tank is in there, and Infectious Lass from the Legion of Substitute superheroes, and there's a Nazi gorilla. It's just all these kind of weird bits and pieces that Brian Azzarello picked from DC history and brings them together with Dr. 13, who is having none of it. And it is hilarious and gets wonderfully meta at the end. And everyone should pick that up. So I will send you a link to that because you definitely would enjoy the sense of humor, Chris.
I want to read that now.
Nice. So I just noticed that Brian had another comment just saying, I have thoughts on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, but I'm worried about dominating the comments section. I hope some other viewers chime in too. And I don't think that's a problem, Brian. We're not getting a lot of live comments right now. That's fine. But anyway, I think it's okay. But in any case, that covers the items that I had on my list for the review roundup. Is there anything that is a scandalous omission?
No, we haven't talked about Russia Sentai Kyuger. Come on, you guys all saw that, right? Everybody saw it? No? Dead Kids on a Train? I'm not getting it.
I am aware that you have talked about some mysterious thing with the bug people
puppet.
and train whistles and
the weird puppet conductor.
Great. So, Russia Sentai Kyuger, really quick before we move on, because I do want to say something about this, because I think it's important to talk about how superheroes are interpreted in other countries.
Sure.
So talking about peak superheroes, and I'm fascinated by this, especially the way Japan takes superheroes, because they've really kind of taken the tropes, and there's less respect, if that's the word, less kind of... Part of the problem with modern superhero narratives, and we'll talk about this, is that they are very structured in a very particular way. And the nice thing about some of the Japanese variations on these things is they throw a lot of that structure away and tell different types of stories. And the beauty of Russia Sentai Takuger, beyond it being a waking nightmare of David Lynch meets Shining Time Station, beyond that, is it eschews a lot of the traditional superhero narrative in favor of using the unpredictable nature of superheroes that you can have, that you can tell any story, that you can tell a sci-fi story, you can tell a fantasy story, you can tell a mystery, you can tell a comedy, you can tell a tragedy, you can tell, it's one-stop shopping for all your story needs. And they really embrace that in Russia Sentai Takuger, and it is also insane. Because they embrace it so much. And I think that's something that's really marvelous, and I wish people who are making superhero stories now kind of had a broader idea and looked at what other people are doing with those narratives. Because I do think that we look toward the classics as far as superhero stories are go. There's a lot of people who reference Frank Miller and Daredevil. There's a lot of people who reference Jack Kirby. There's a lot of references to the original Superman films, mainly for ill. And all of this stuff, and I think if we could, more people saw the risks and chances and weirdness that is happening in places like Japan and Hong Kong that are taking these superhero tropes and twisting them just a little bit, I think we'd all be better off. One of the best modern superhero narratives I have ever seen is Kamen Rider 4Z, which is a chapter of the ongoing Kamen Rider show that's been going on forever. And it's never been as good as this one time, but it was really good then. And one of the reasons it made it good was it stopped looking at the monsters as just people who got beat up and then exploded. And it started being like, why are you a monster? Let's talk about that. Halfway through the show, it becomes clear to the protagonist, Kamen Rider 4Z, that it's not helping anybody to just beat these characters up. And he starts looking for non-violent ways to keep them from destroying whatever they're destroying. And that's a really bizarre change, because that's not how superheroes act. And it was fascinating to see, and it's a brilliant show. So I'm glad I put those two in.
On that note, I would actually like to make a contribution to the lesser-known superheroes. I just put it into the group chat, the link to it. It was a short film, about a 10-minute short film, and it's the most compelling 10-minute short film that you'll ever see on IO9. IO9 did this. It was back. Wow, it's actually 2 years old, but I remember seeing it last year. It was called The Flying Man. That was the name of it, The Flying Man. And in this short film, the superhero is basically this green. He doesn't look really human. You can tell. I mean, he's got 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but he has no face. It's just this green or this gray figure. And there's something extremely creepy about it, because you see him in flashes, but the way he is doling out justice, and you can tell by the flashes that they show within the short film, you can tell that even the media, they don't know if this is. I mean, he is doing good, but there's no due process. They don't know if he's a real superhero or not. They don't know where he's drawn the line, and and what happens and then you see it from the criminal's perspective, what the Flying Man is doing, and I'm not going to give anything away from it, but I will tell you this: the ending just made me hold my breath. It was really. It was really stunning, and so I recommend, if you want to see the real question, and it's not like it, I was expecting to be something along the lines of X-Men, where they were good people, but the world's fearing them because they're mutants, yada yada. That wasn't it. That was not it. This is the closest thing I've seen to a superhero horror movie that I've ever seen. And I highly recommend taking 10 minutes out of the day and watching it. It's called The Flying Man. You can do a search for it on just io9.com.
I took the link that you put in the chat, and I put in the comments.
Okay.
For the event page, so people can find it there.
Another fun oddball superhero experience. I have yet to see Unbreakable. But everybody raves about just how good Unbreakable. It's the superhero movie that is not a superhero movie.
You're right.
Which I like to see, but when it comes to fun oddball films, I was a sucker for Sky High.
Oh yeah, that one was lots of fun.
I mean, first off, it was Kurt Russell's first Disney movie since the days that he was doing The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes. So I was a kid again, and the fact that they had Linda Carter make a cameo in the film, no, she did back then, back in the day. I'll tell you what. So yeah, I really enjoyed Sky High. It was good fun because I'm like, yeah, you take superpowers and you give them to kids going through high school. That's a bitch, ain't it? You know. So I enjoyed that.
I did too. I'm gonna corral us though a little bit because it's time to move into the next phase of our show. Just one last bit on there, Jared. You do have a little support here. Brian has left a comment in the Q&A saying, "How much does it suck that Power Rangers skipped over TOQGER for adaptation? I'd have loved to see how they dealt with the, shall we say, unfortunate appearance of the TOQGER Megazord."
It's called Tokuger, and
Tokuger.
the horrible giant robots are why they passed over it, because the giant robots are horrible. This is one of those things where they clearly designed the toys first, and then someone had to build a suit off of the toy, and they can't move. The guys cannot move in these suits. Trying to turn a bug into a feature by having them on like roller skates, track, going at the bad guys, it does not work at all. And so what's fascinating is as you watch the show, the giant robot fights get smaller and smaller and smaller, and in the last couple episodes, they're not there at all, which is weird, because that's the whole point of these shows. I think they were never going to bring that show over because it is so weird. And even if they did, the first thing they would do is take away all the weirdness. It's the same way they brought over the one Power Rangers where they were angels, and then took away the part about them being angels, and then they're just, I think they're space military instead. But they got the weird head cell phones. So it's a good thing, because if they brought it over, it would have just been awful. And we can enjoy it in its weird, weird Japanese state the way it was intended.
Well, all right. So we spent a whole hour on the lightning round review roundup, but that's fine. But now let's get into some discussion questions. And to help us change gears, I have a couple of lighter questions to warm us up. Okay? So these also are generally intended to be quick, quick answers as opposed to a really in-depth discussion. We'll get more into that. So these are quicker.
Quick as opposed to what we do. You got it.
Well, I'm just giving you something to aim for and
Understood.
get what we get.
Quickish.
Yes. So I am waving a magic wand, and poof, you guys all have superpowers now.
Ooh.
Do you fight crime?
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. I mean, we're assuming that these are good superpowers that you gave us, right?
Player's choice.
It's not like what?
Player's choice.
Player's choice. All right. Well, let's say we got the Superman package, because that's got all the good ones. You got flight, you got super speed, you got invulnerability, you got strength, you got I-beams. So that's a nice collection. That's essentially a whole Justice League right there, or at the very least a whole X-Men team. So yeah, I think there's a certain. I mean, I live in the crime-ridden city of Philadelphia, so I think there's certainly an appeal there of using your powers, especially if they kept you from getting killed by bullets, to fight crime. Because why not? I mean, that's the thing. That's like you saying, "Here's a spaceship. Do you go into space?"
I'm actually going to say that no, I would not fight crime if I had superpowers. I would actually be a first responder. I would rather help people than fight crime. I mean, I'd be one of those. I would like to be one of those superheroes that, if I had the Kal-El package, what I would do is the minute I would feel the tremor starting up in Tibet, I'd be gone. I'd just drop it and go, and I would do what I can to try to save as many people as I could before the earthquake got to the major peak. You know, if I had the and even if I arrived there after the earthquake happened, I would be helping the other first responders team, help getting debris, help finding survivors. That would be my jam. I don't know if I'd want if it came down to the responsibility of guilty or innocent versus the responsibility of trying to save that, because both come with a lot of responsibility. I think I'd rather be the first responder, the one that's first on the scene, the rescue team.
I feel like I would fight crime, but it wouldn't be my day job to fight crime. Like if there was something that needed super involvement, I would do it. But I wouldn't want the Kal-El package. I would want the Firestorm package, or as I prefer to call it, the Adam Eve package. Because if you ever read Incredible Adam Eve is a supporting character, Incredible's girlfriend. In that, she has the Firestorm power where she can change things elementally. So she can fly, but she can also, basically, if she has the equivalent amount of atoms of brick, she can turn it into the equivalent amount of atoms of bread. And so I would take that power and I would go to, or grain, maybe not bread, but yeah, I would take that power and I would go to third world countries and suddenly solve world hunger with these freaking crazy, powers. Obviously, if some guy was brandishing a knife and attacking people, I would then punch him in the face because, sometimes he needs a punch in the face. But I would also use them in I like that idea of that sort of first responder, but also to this other level of, like, how many irrigation ditches can Kal-El dig out so that these, villages that are going through droughts have water and access? Like, how many... all these different things, like how many fields can be planted by the Flash in 5 minutes that would normally take these other people so long to do, for example. So, I mean, I would try to...
With that sort of thinking, though, if I can step all over your dreams, Chris, is that sort of thing requires a vast amount of infrastructure that even superpowers can't solve. And that's a problem that people are wrestling with, who are trying to solve these problems now. That there's, like, yeah, we can throw money and create an irrigation system, but what happens when it breaks and there's no one who knows how to fix it? And these kind of things. So on the one hand, yes, superpowers give you the ability to plant all those crops, but then who's going to harvest it? Who's going to water it every day that you've planted in a place that's kind of arid? If you move a mighty river to fill it out, how is that going to wreck the environment?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that people bring up about superheroes is that they're not changing the status quo, that they are just keeping things at a normal level. And when you look at these problems that you and T are saying you would like to fix, which are wonderful, and I hate that I'm stepping all over your fantasy. But when you look at these problems, they're not fixed by superpowers. At the same time, standing in the way of someone who's being mugged can be stopped by a superpower if you are bulletproof. So,
all I would say in response
we're
to
dealing
that,
with superpowers, so it's an unrealistic fantasy to begin.
Right.
Me pointing out that one is slightly more unrealistic than another
Well,
is the definition of splitting hairs.
But real quickly, just to say to that, I've heard far more people say this won't be solved by us throwing money at it than actually having seen money being thrown at things. And I think if we could start throwing money at things and start throwing superpowers at things, I think a lot more crap would get solved than otherwise. But maybe that's wishful thinking.
Well, certainly, just to address the realism point, the intent of the thought experiment is that we are in our world, except that you now have superpowers. We're not imagining any other different elements. But it's interesting that you guys all kind of took it in that direction of like what do you do with your powers? Because I was thinking of it almost more in the context of like I don't fight crime even in an ordinary way now.
Really?
Other than, well, I mean, I pick up litter.
I mean,
But-
it's just the woman I married, because once we saw someone get her purse snatched, and she just took after it to try to stop the kid who took it. So I feel like, I mean, if she gets superpowers, she's definitely fighting crime, but there's no argument.
So it's one thing if you find yourself in that situation, but I think it's the difference between do you seek it out, right? Are you going out on patrol at night looking for stuff?
If I had powers, yes.
And that's a fair answer. That's the whole point of the question.
Yeah.
See, I think it's hard to know for sure, of course.
Especially if I had the power to move very fast. Like if I was running super fast or flying and didn't get winded, definitely on patrol. If I've got to swing from rooftops, I don't know.
Yeah, if I can fly but only as fast as I can run, no, there's no fighting crime. There's me getting to work faster. That is it.
See, I feel like there's, because just it's a little bit like what T was saying, is that there's the whole due process angle to fighting crime of like, if you come across two people yelling at each other and it looks like they're about to get in a fight, well, who's the aggressor there? Like you can maybe stop them, but it's you can't just take someone to jail because it looks like he was going to punch the other guy out, right?
But you
so
can't
what do you do?
Back a Ryder truck into a jewelry store to rob it. Which is
in that situation, I wouldn't want to have superpowers, but if I'm going to fight crime, the superhero I'm going to be is Judge Dredd. That way,
Proletarian state. There you go.
Exactly. I'm just going to come in and
fascist with the badge.
Exactly. And I'm going to be, I'm going to do the whole Carl, and not the Stallone Judge Dredd. I'm talking Carl Urban Judge Dredd. That's, just to sort of make that very clear,
Yeah, and if I'm fighting crime, though, I want to be the Flash, because I want to be the guy with the absurdly powerful ability that can prevent the stuff from happening. So two people yelling at each other and they're going to come to fisticuffs. I don't punch one or the other. I grab one and I move them across town. And there's no argument.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, how about next we talk about... Think about who was your first favorite superhero. Is it the same as your current favorite superhero? Why or why not?
Oh, absolutely, it's still Batman. But it's for different reasons now than when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, I loved Batman because he was always prepared. That's his whole thing, is he always knows what's going on and has a contingency plan or a gadget or something that is going to solve the exact problem. And that is marvelous. It's a wonderful wish fulfillment thing. Especially if you're a child and you always feel out of your depth. And here is a superhero who is always in his depth, no matter what's going on, no matter how impossible the odds seem. Now I love Batman because of how elastic he is as a character. So it's more of a meta love than anything else. Because you can take Batman and put him in any story possible. You can put Batman in space. You can put Batman fighting gods. You can put Batman in an alleyway dealing with muggers. You can have him solve a mystery You can have him kicking it with the Justice League. There is no story where Batman doesn't fit. And part of that is because he's been told in so many different stories that they have found a way to make the character work in so many ways. And I just think that's beautiful. There's few characters that fit in that way, that are so elastic that can be twisted and changed and rearranged and still be recognizable. And that's just marvelous to me. I love that about that character.
Nice. What about you, T?
Wow. I'm really trying to think. I mean, as a kid, my I think it is still Superman. I think it is still Superman. Because I've gone through a lot of superheroes in my day, in my many years on the planet. And I mean, my first experience with superheroes was watching in black and white the Superman, and of course around that time I also discovered Adam West's Batman and reruns and things like that. But Superman always held a special place for me, and I learned to appreciate it more. I mean, I can still watch Christopher Reeve as Superman and just smile and just that wonderful boyish innocence. I think it's also a very personal thing because my father is a salesman. He sells steel on the industrial level, and he is so good at his job even now. His nickname in the industry was the Man of Steel, and I got the biggest kick out of it because yeah. And I got the biggest kick out of it. I still get a kick out of it. I actually put it on his LinkedIn, and my dad was like, "Oh, you don't have to put that on there." And I said, "Yes, I do. Yes, I do." And then I saw Man of Steel, and for everyone who did not care for it, I really enjoyed Zack Snyder's Superman. I'm sorry, not Zack. I'm sorry, Henry Cavill's Superman. I really enjoyed it. My biggest critique of the film it has only just recently cropped up, and it was a recent. I shared the link on YouTube where a color lab went in and they colorized the Man of Steel, and they said something very profound in it. They said Superman should be flying through blue skies, not gray ones, don't you think? And I'm like, hell yes. So I for all its faults, I still really enjoyed Man of Steel. I think for me the defining moment was the moment that was so controversial. And since I don't know, is it okay to talk about Man of Steel spoiler-wise?
I think if it's been long enough, we can let people know that we're going to say it. But yeah,
everybody was up in arms when Superman killed Zod, and yet to me that was the most powerful moment in the film. And not only was it one of the most powerful moments in the film, it was a powerful moment for not just the character of Kal-El, but also also for Henry Cavill, because he really conveyed the fact that he says, to save these people, to save my adopted family, I have to kill the last person from my own world. I will be alone when I do this. And he makes the call, and he does it. And Henry Cavill sold it. He sold it for everything it was worth, and I admire him for that. And that's, to me, and yet when in fact, Jared and I had this back and forth, I think on his thread, my favorite power of Superman is when he's human. There's a wonderful one-off comic called The Jumper, Superman and the Jumper. I think I post it like once a year, and every time I read it, I just cry, because it's just such a beautiful, beautiful strip, but it reminds me, this is why I love Superman so much.
Nice.
If you had never read it,
my favorite part of Man of Steel was Henry Cavill's teeth. I really liked that he had bad teeth because it implied that he came from a poor family, and I really like that. Were not able to afford braces.
Well, I'm just thinking, what kind of braces would even work on him?
These teeth will grow this way and no other way.
Yeah. So what about you, Chris?
This is not a Man of Steel podcast, but all I will say, real fast, just because I have to, because I can't withhold it, is my issue was never him killing Zod. It was not being shown to save civilians, because that's the thing I loved about Superman, and I do love Superman, is the fact that Superman would have said, we're not fighting here. We are taking this somewhere else and fighting. And even if Zod doesn't let him do that, and even if Zod's whole point is, no, I'm going to kill these people in front of you, Superman would try and stop him, try and move him from the city, try and take it somewhere else, try and just save random people, even while Zod's hitting him and throwing buildings at him. But they didn't show that in that movie, and that saddened me. Anyway, this is not a Man of Steel podcast. As a kid, I mean, you're kind of stuck. Not stuck, but in a certain way, it's like your first superhero is going to be your favorite superhero, almost always. And mine were the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. These 4 goofy brothers who more than often were their own, causing themselves enough trouble. They were their own problem. I mean, the television show, the '87 television show is what I watched. The cartoon. I read the comics now, and holy crap, holy cow, the comics now are great. And I loved that, and I was able to, as a little kid growing up, I felt like I was able to relate it because these are little kids, basically, who are put out there trying to stop, goofy crimes, and I loved that idea that, hey, if only I were a mutated giant turtle, I would be just like these guys. But
who is your favorite? Who is your favorite?
As a kid, well, actually, it was Donatello. I always.
A lot of sense.
Yeah, I always liked the
nerd. Raphael kid myself.
Yeah.
But I see the Donatello in you. I get it.
I loved, and I still to this day love Donatello. And read the comics now, because Anyway, if you read them, you'll get that. But now, I mean, it's hard because in my head I can't. It's hard to pick one because I feel like if I'm reading that comic book, that right for this moment is my favorite superhero.
The Flash.
It is! No, I was going there. Thank you, Jared. I was leading up to that.
He beat you to it!
But, because my brain goes...
quicker if your favorite's the Flash. Come on.
See, my brain goes for 3, actually. It goes Captain Marvel being Carol Danvers, who I feel like the only woman I would leave my wife for. And she knows this. She knows this. And then the Question, just because he is so... Justice League Unlimited. Justice League Unlimited question.
Justice League Unlimited, yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey Toombs, who was from Deep Space Nine and who was so good. But no, the Flash, and I feel like a little part of it, and maybe this is sort of looking at it in retrospect. Well, the power set is just awesome because he is potentially the most powerful being in that superhero universe, which is just, has that even more than Superman because he's faster than Superman. There's a brilliant moment in one of the comics. I think it's when Barry Allen does the Flash Rebirth, when Barry Allen comes back after having died in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and he feels he's accidentally, spoiler alert, so he thinks he's killing people using the Speed Force somehow, and he doesn't know what, and so he has to get away, and so he starts running, and then Superman runs after him, and he's like, Barry, we need to stop you. We need to help. We can help you. And he's like, no, you can't help me. But by the way, you can't even stop me. And Clark goes, we used to race back in those old days, and I used to win at least as many as I lost of those races. And Barry just looks at it and goes, Clark, those were for charity, and then zooms past Superman and leaves him in the dust. And I'm like, oh, how do you one-up Superman and not be the best, coolest hero ever? But also because Barry, and I love Wally too, but Barry Allen, he's the guy that, okay, what would you be doing if you weren't a superhero? Like Clark, he would be either a journalist or he'd be a farmer. Two great things, good, respectable things. Bruce Wayne would be a philanthropist. But what would Barry be doing? He was a cop. He was a CSI. He was a police scientist. He devoted his life to helping people before he ever got hit by lightning and covered in chemicals and given those superpowers. Bruce didn't do that. He had to come to terms with that and decided that that's what he wanted to do, which is great and admirable. Superman didn't do that. He sort of came to terms with that. All these other characters they get their powers and then they decide to help people. And I like the character that decides to help people and then they get the powers and they're going to use the powers to help people even more.
As a journalist, I'm going to ignore the fact that you said a journalist. We're going to pretend that didn't happen and move on.
Yes.
At the same time, that just makes me think of I've seen a couple of different essays take this angle, but just pointing out that Clark Kent's not a super great journalist.
I don't think that's true. I think he's a really good journalist. He is not as good as Lois. We can all agree on that. Lois is the better of the two. And I think people who like that, well, you're not as good as this multiple Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who worked with you. Yes, that's true. He's not as good. But I do think that he is a good journalist because not only continuing to work at the paper and was moved to a newsreader status at a time when that was a big thing, as opposed to now when who cares if you're reading news on the television anymore. But not only that, he is a successful writer of nonfiction books. So that's a different type of journalism that goes on there. So depending on what you read, he is both a good or a bad journalist. I like to think that he's a good journalist. There's a great Superman story. Again, it's Mark Waid. It's Birthright, I think. I want to say it's Birthright. That goes into Clark Kent the journalist. And that's really nice. And I've always liked that element that here he is Superman. And when they made Lex Luthor president, I was really upset that they never had Clark Kent taken down as a journalist, not Superman take down Lex Luthor as the president. I think that was a missed opportunity. Or Lois Lane taking down Lex Luthor. That would have been fine.
I just don't see Clark and Lois, like doing a Watergate thing or something like that. I just don't picture the two of them as Woodward and Bernstein.
Really? Why not? Exactly what I picture.
Quick related question.
And find out who Deep Throat was. That's the first thing to do.
Quick related question. Was Peter Parker a good photographer, or was he just really good at taking pictures of himself as Spider-Man?
No, he was a good photographer.
I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but just as a final thought on Clark Kent as journalist, certainly he's been around long enough that they've had plenty of time to portray him in all sorts of different ways as a journalist. But what I was kind of thinking of particularly was I think they did a weekly series called 52. This was before the new 52. But in that one, it was for a whole year he was depowered. And during that time, he discovered that being a journalist when you don't have super hearing and the ability to fly all over the place and insert yourself into the middle of everything that's happening, it's harder to be a journalist because he doesn't have all of that access anymore.
See, now I want to read this story of that Jared just pitched. I want to read the comic book where Clark and Lois are Woodward and Bernstein and they take down President Luthor. I want to read that story.
Yeah, right. That'd be
It's an opportunity to be sure. Could still be an Elseworlds.
A comic book called Gotham City PD that was just about the police who have to deal with Batman all the time, and it was brilliant. But I always wanted them to do a series called Daily Planet about the journalists who have to deal with everything that goes on in Metropolis with Superman all the time, and it'd be about Lois and Jimmy and Perry White and all the other reporters who worked there. And it never happened, obviously. But they did something like that at Marvel with The Pulse, which had like their reporter characters like Ben Urich and new people talking about reporting on the superhero world. And I feel like something that is... And they did it in Marvels too.
That's what I was going to mention. Yeah,
it's something that has been explored, but there's still so many stories to tell through that lens of journalism, of people whose whole job is to talk about extraordinary things happening, and the idea of the extraordinary fantasy being reality for these people is so good. And I have yet to read anything that does that. If someone has read something that does that, let me know. I'd love to read it.
I don't have an answer to that. But to the question about first favorite, I'm kind of pleased that we've all named someone different because I'm going to say Spider-Man.
Spider-Man!
Now, I think probably my first exposure to Spider-Man was the in reruns of The Electric Company, which was kind of a Sesame Street also ran that had these Spider-Man segments. So that was probably my first exposure to Spider-Man.
Good times.
I, as a very little kid, and this is young enough that I only remember it through pictures and finding the pieces of the costume later and having, because I must have been like 4. My mom made me a Spider-Man costume where the gloves were red socks that she sewed black yarn webbing around.
That's great.
That is awesome.
So
I had
I think
a Spider-Man costume as a child, and my mom had to cut the mouth out because I didn't like it, but I could.
I can only imagine that's a tough mask to do.
Yeah, and it was one of those plastic ones with a cord, like the store-bought plastic mask, and so
I
really
feel like, they've got to, if you're ever really wearing one, you'd have to have something that's kind of like goggles for the eyes to keep it from just always fogging everything up, I would think.
Well, in the comics they do. I mean, in the most recent comics they show that they're generally lenses, or they're meant to be lenses, as opposed to.
Well, I just mean that even if there's nothing that's kind of sealing off area, though, your breath would fog them up inside.
That is a risk you run as someone who's worn a Spider-Man mask as an adult with that spot.
I wonder what they do actually when they're doing for the costume in the movies. I wonder if that's how it works, or if he just lives with it being fogged up because it's a movie and it doesn't matter.
A lot of cosplayers do white mesh that you can see through but reads as solid.
Oh yeah,
And I've done that for Grendel. I haven't done it for Spider-Man yet. Yeah. So that's something a lot of them do. I know for the movies, they do have, one of the Raimi movies, I think, had a combination mesh lens thing where it was a lens, so it was shiny to the camera, but underneath it was a mesh that he could see through and would breathe.
But so anyway, Spider-Man. So I think probably as a really little kid, maybe there was an element of just first superhero stuff, and also just like the idea of climbing up walls and stuff. That just seemed like a cool power, and he's always swinging around, and that. So I think as a really little kid, it was really just that appeal to him. And I think there was also a period where I got a little more into the Justice League because I had some picture books that were various Justice League adventures where they had to team up and they each had their own power to get past one trap or another. But
it came with cassette tape?
Yeah.
Yes, I had those too.
They're great. But so in any way, it kind of Spider-Man was kind of always there, and I always kind of came back to Spider-Man. It's certainly part of why I still love Spider-Man is this element that he really doesn't have his acts together in either role. Certainly not as Peter Parker. He can't ever quite get stuff under control. He's trying. He's smart. He's not uncharming a lot of the time. Certainly when we have the teenage stuff, he's more dorky. But certainly when we have adult Peter, he's good looking. He's got the rakish smile, but he's a dork at heart, and he just is too absent-minded to ever really get everything lined up the way he needs it to be. And so there's this element of Spider-Man is like his escape. It's like that's what all the wisecracks are about. It's because with the mask on, is now I'm free. I can do all of this stuff that if people only knew that I was really like this. But at the same time, he can't quite get it together as Spider-Man either. There's JJJ hates him, and it's all it's feels like everyone's always against him, and he just has the worst luck. And it's just I like that idea that even his own personal escapist secret identity still can't quite get his act together.
There was a great Spider-Man annual. I think Matt Fraction wrote it, where they flash back to his and Mary Jane's courtship when they're teenagers, and he gives her a mixtape because that's what you do as a teenager. You give people mixtapes. But it's like a science lecture. It's not songs. Because he thinks, like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I have to share this with you. And she's like, what the hell is this? It's like some weird guy talking about neutrons? I don't get it.
There's also a great moment in Spider-Man, which I think Bendis wrote, which is the first. It was the limited series where Peter Parker met Miles Morales, or the regular universe Peter Parker met Miles Morales. And at the end, he's just sort of starting to give Miles advice, and one of them is like, wash your costume daily because it will stink and people will make fun of you. And I'm like, not make fun of Peter Parker. People will make fun of Spider-Man because he's wearing a stinky leotard. And it's just like, he can't even get it together as the super cool Spider-Man at all.
Yeah. So I think that's a lot of what I continue to love about Spider-Man. But like, I'm just going to in case anyone were to doubt my fandom.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
What happened? Oh, Spidey.
You know where I got this? My mom gave him to me.
Aww.
Sweet as. That's parental love right there.
I will share then for the video watchers. This. It is a messenger bag. It is not a messenger bag. It is actually a diaper bag that my wife ordered. I don't use it as a diaper bag. I use it as a messenger bag, and I carry this with me to work. I work at a university in a financial aid office, and this is what I carry to work every single day.
Nice. That is marvelous.
For the audio listeners, it was the bag with the Flash logo on it, and I had a 2.5-foot tall plush Spider-Man.
I'm just gonna move the camera slightly.
Yeah.
All the masks.
Collection of masks. Yeah.
And then
Jared is reporting from the Batcave.
Yeah. Jared filled up there, and then of course the Batman cowl has a special place. One of the many Batman cowls. I don't know why I said the one. But yeah, I got my favorite is right there, and then all the others over there.
I want to get you the Shakespeare bust where you pull the head back and there's the button that like sends you down to the Batcave.
Man, you don't know how many times I've looked at my own basement and been like, "There's got to be a way to put a fire pole in here. There's got to be a way to do this."
You see, all I got right now, I'm just shopping Under Armour because I'm going, okay, what alter ego do I want to order? I got the Shield one upstairs, but I either need to get me the Cap or I really want the Punisher. I really want the Punisher one, especially after I saw there was a same guy that did the Renegade. He did the Renegade Power Rangers video that everybody lost their minds over.
Right, yeah. He did a Punisher fan film, right?
He did one called Punisher Dirty Laundry.
Yes. Oh, that was great.
Yeah. Friggin' that if the Punisher movie with Thomas Jane had been that good, I mean, wow, it would have been, wow. But I'll still watch that Punisher. I will still watch Thomas Jane's Punisher because, yes, the movie's a little rough in places, and John Travolta is chewing scenery, but Thomas Jane, in my opinion, made a great Nick Castle. And I really enjoyed Frank Castle. I'm combining Nick Fury and Frank Castle. Frank Castle. I really enjoyed his Frank Castle. So
I don't know, man. He's no Ray Stevenson.
Yes.
I may be the only person who rates Punisher Warzone as my favorite Punisher film.
Oh wow!
Amazing.
Well, that's because Ray Stevenson. That I can't look at Ray Stevenson and not think Titus Pullo, which is a whole other. Which is the ancient Rome Frank Castle. Let's be honest.
Sure. Also a great Volstagg, one of my favorite Thor characters. He does it all. He does it all.
So, I point this out not as complaint but just observation. But we have now been going for an hour and 40 minutes without having got to what I originally intended to be the primary content of the show.
Editing!
No, I don't consider anything that has happened so far wasted time, so there's no problem there. But with one more comment from Brian, maybe we can also move on to the bigger discussion questions. But another quick one. Brian asks, I'll just throw this out there. Have you ever played a superhero in an RPG? And if so, what was your hero name and what were your powers? I have not, actually, so I don't really have an answer for that one.
I have. I was, or at least I designed the character. We never did actually get around to playing the game. I wound up, but it was called Grups Heroes, Grups, Grups Heroes, and the character I played was his name was FX, and I based him off of the Dazzler. I based him off of Dazzler. He could take sound and transform it into energy.
Nice.
And so yeah, I was all set to play him. I was really excited to play him, and because he was kind of a combination of the Dazzler and Brian Brown's character from the movie FX, and because he also did he did his own pyrotechnics, he did his own special effects and things like that. And unfortunately, we never got around to playing him, so I was bummed out. That was the closest I came.
I actually have done it twice. One was in a game that Chris ran. That was amazing, and it was a old school Marvel. No, I've done it more than twice. I've done it a bunch of times, because at least 3. But first off, Chris's game, which was the old school Marvel role-playing system, not the Marvel Heroic, but the previous one. And I played the fabulous D-Man, Dennis Dumpy, who I love because he's such a sad sack, but he tries really hard, and is ridiculous and often bearded, and is just he's a superhero who's also a fan of superheroes, which I love, and that's why his costume looks the way he does, because he looks like a mixture of Daredevil's old costume and Wolverine, and that is why it's like I'm a big fan of Daredevil and Wolverine, so I've made his costume like that, and it's got a big D on his chest. And he's just he tries so hard, and everything goes wrong for him, but he doesn't stop trying, and I just love that. And it was wonderful to play Chris's game, because it was like Nightcrawler, Doctor Strange, and Captain Marvel, and D-Man. And it was awesome.
The greatest Avenger team ever.
I also played a Christicon long con game of Marvel Heroic that was based in Guardians of the Galaxy, and I played Rocket Raccoon, and this was before the movie came out. And so when I heard that, nice Chris, showing off your Rocket Raccoon shirt. So when this came out, I was like, oh my God, you're doing a Guardians of the Galaxy? I am playing Rocket Raccoon, and there was an option to you had to pay more money on your ticket, but you got to claim your character. And I was like, I'm not taking any chances. Rocket Raccoon. I shouldn't have bothered because no one had any idea who Rocket Raccoon was. And later, the people who I played with watched the film and was like, I see why you like that guy so much. And they also, one of them actually came to me and was like, it's weird to have Rocket Raccoon not talk in your voice. I don't know how I feel about that. And I said it was okay because Bradley Cooper and I have similar vocal styles. So
I was kind of thinking that, actually.
Yeah, they were essentially just casting a movie star version of me for the voice, and that's cool. That's what they wanted to do. I was available. I would have done it at any time. And that offer still stands if they ever need to do a sequel. And the third time I played a superhero was actually my friend Russell Collins ran a Savage Worlds. They have a supervillain campaign in there where aliens have killed all the superheroes, and now it's up to the supervillains to rise up and stop them. And that is actually where Comrade Cockroach came from, is that game. He was created in that game, and I just could not stop thinking about him. Even though we never finished the campaign, Comrade Cockroach has gone on to greater things, which has been marvelous. So
cool.
Yeah, I'm sure I've played others, but those are the ones. I haven't done a superhero LARP yet, and I really want to. JR has done one, and I'm jealous.
Nice.
All right, so me, yes. The answer is yes. Real fast, Jared.
Like a gazillion.
Yeah, but Jared, you are Foggy Nelson. Can I just say that? If anyone knows Jared Axelrod, you know that, and you've seen the Daredevil show, he is Foggy Nelson. Anyway, that's who he should be role-playing as constantly, because it's him. But that note, yes, I did in a game Jared GM'd. I was a blatant ripoff of Kid Flash called Redshift.
How did I forget my own game?
I know, right? And you were, yeah, and that was a lot of fun. You were Mark,
a fun game. I really like
Mark Shepard. Is that the name of the actor who
Yes.
was the villain that Jared roleplayed as? Was basically that actor who's been in countless things. He's like a villain in Supernatural and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was blatant ripoff of Kid Flash, but he was Redshift because clearly it's different. I'm in another game right now that I still do on Skype. A friend of mine, John, for the last 12 years, has GM'd a game that he created that is a combined Marvel DC universe, which he says is easy to create. Like, it's easy to reconcile that they exist on the same planet somehow. But in that game, I'm in multiple teams, and I play the Mimic of X-Men fame. I play Flash Thompson with no legs and a symbiote, because that's how you play Flash Thompson. And I play Bouncing Boy, because I look like Bouncing Boy. So those are the characters I play.
Is your Bouncy Boy, is it clean-shaven, or does he have the mustache?
He's grown the beard.
The beard, the full beard.
The full beard, yes.
I remember seeing that picture.
I was assigned Bouncing Boy by John, because he said, he just looked at me and he said, because if they decided to make a movie tomorrow and you walked into the audition room, they would stop everything and say, no, don't say a word. You are Chuck Tane. Go get a costume. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I'll take it.
It occurs to me, actually, after this discussion, that way back years ago on our sadly short-lived podcast Sci-Fi Smackdown, we did an episode where it was the X-Men versus Heroes, which was still just in season 1 at that time, and we did it a bit like a dice-free RPG type game, and I controlled the Heroes team, and I don't actually even remember who won. It was a long time ago. But given that we have had a lengthy conversation already, I just want to check in with you guys. How much longer are you good to go? We've already had kind of a 2-hour discussion.
I think I'm going to be checking out because I'm fading fast.
Okay, well that's fine. We have been going almost 2 hours, so that's understandable. Perhaps if we want to talk about some of these bigger questions, we'll just have to do this again at some point.
We can always do it again. We can always do it again.
So what do you guys think?
I'm still good to go. It feels weird to keep going after tea leaves. So maybe we could do some final thoughts and then maybe do some more. Because there's something I do want to talk about as far as heroes in the larger culture. But at the same time, there's so much here, we could definitely do another session. Or we could keep talking after tea goes. Whatever. It feels weird to me.
I'm sorry to be tapping out, because, I mean...
What?
2 hours, man. I think...
Yeah, no, I think we all understand.
I could go for at least another half an hour, if you want to. Or we can shut it down and do this again. Clearly we have a podcast series going here. This is not going to be one episode and done.
Oh, guys. I was only able to talk myself into it because it's like, I'll just do it just the one time. It's
just a one-off.
Thing.
Just a one-shot. No, it's at least a 2-issue. 2-issue limited series.
Cliffhanger!
12 issues, let's go.
Christiana Ellis' New 52.
Oh, God.
Prestige format. We're going to have the soft cover binding and everything.
There you go. Kickstarter.
Get a hologram cover. On the front of me, like...
Yeah.
Hologram, foil embossed, die cut. We're going the full 90s.
Yeah, but I want Jared's pose to be that classic Tom Baker. I want him doing with the hand, or maybe it's Doctor Strange, doing the Doctor Strange thing.
Oh, the Ditko fingers.
Yeah.
Can't get my hands to quite do it. Actually, my hand is really big, and the rest of me is small behind it.
Well, so I'm honestly torn here. So as far as continuing, but at the same time, I don't. Why do I have to be in charge?
Why don't you put her in charge, man?
Maybe we should just do final thoughts and then save the rest of it for another day.
Yeah, I think that's probably best. It has already been almost 2 hours. So,
2 fantastic hours.
Yes, I agree. It's been a lot of fun, and as previously mentioned, the original intention for the primary subject matter of the show, we didn't even get to, but that's fine because, as also said at the beginning, I suspected that we were going to get what we were going to get, and it was really just more of a, it's a plan that did not survive contact with my friends.
So we come back for another 2 hours. You release it as 4 one-hour episodes, and there you go. Christiana Ellis' Fantastic Four.
There you go.
I love your optimism that in the next time we do this, we'll still get to everything in 2 hours.
Yeah.
This was the warm-up.
We'll spend another 2 hours talking about other stuff that's come up before and still not get to it.
At that point, we'll be talking about Ant-Man, because let's be honest.
Oh, Brian just said, "Oh dear, sorry about that, guys. This is kind of my fault with the Tokagur question and the RPG question." No worries. That's not a problem.
The smallest.
Brian, it's your fault.
Wasted time.
Brian, it's your fault, and you should feel bad.
Aww.
I'm kidding.
In fact, you get a gold star for being a participating member of the audience.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't have an actual physical gold star, but you have it, and that's what's
You
important.
get a Legion ring.
There you go. There you go. Ooh, nice.
Yeah, you gotta do it right. You gotta do the Behold the Flight ring.
What? I don't know that one.
It's a great panel where clearly they didn't want to show Brainiac 5 flipping off the reader, so he does Behold the Flight ring, which is a British...
A British two-up, yeah.
Why not all fingers? Why not just hold it up like this?
I don't know! That would make the most sense, right?
or as the fist, yeah, like... yeah. Who knows? Maybe it was intentionally to...
Yeah, it may have.
as a joke. All right. So, in any case, though, this has been enormous fun, but I think it is also for the best that we can go around and do and final thoughts. So, Chris, let's start with you.
I feel like the superhero medium, it's one of those things where it started. I mean, final thoughts on our weird, rambling, wonderful conversation.
Summarize our experience.
No, I feel like the whole superhero thing, it's transcended its original intent. Whether that intent was meant, they meant to have that, or if it just sort of fell into it, where it was sort of these like very simple black and white morality tales where it was always easy to sort of look at, what's good, what's bad. Oh, that's bad. Punch it in the face. That was sort of your elementary origins, and now you have this where you can tell these different, stories. These, you can have Winter Soldier, which is essentially a spy story but with superheroes. You can have a Super Sentai story that is a crazy walking nightmare, David Lynch, Shining Time Station combo. You can have, you can do anything with these characters now. This is the modern mythology. Not to get too pretentious about it, but these are the tales of Hercules, not Xena Hercules, but sort of that. And I think you can make anything out of them that you want, and with the amount of them that are out there, either in film or in show, because you can have the extremes of the Flash or Daredevil. Two completely different shows that I both love. Both have men in red leather, ironically, but and you have yes, you have those extremes, and I love that. And I can't wait to talk more about it next time.
Awesome. Jared?
One thing I really wanted to talk about, and I'll squeeze this in and we can talk about this more next time, is something that I was actually discussing on Twitter today, where the point of superhero stories is less about entertainment and more about exhilaration, this kind of intense emotional state that might even be closer to, say, horror films, in that way that we are put in a circumstances that is far away what we experience in a normal time, and have that thrill and that excitement of being Spider-Man whipping through the rooftops, or zooming around on the Batmobile, or calling down the lightning as the God of Thunder. And I think it's no surprise then that the moment the technology caught up with the imagination and we were able to put these characters on big and small screens and capture that exhilaration, that they became popular because they are very effective at exhilarating an audience. And that's one of the reasons that I think they're very popular right now, is that's their whole point, is they are exhilaration devices. And we are in an age now where those kind of stories can be told not just by ink and paper, but also by actors and CGI, and by amazing animated stuff. I mean, Legend of Korra is a superhero story, and it's astounding. So and that part of the reason that it's astounding is because it taps into that exhilaration. I think that's an argument can be made that the animation of season 2, which was not up to the rather standard due to another studio, was less exhilarating and therefore less enjoyable for that medium. So that's something I definitely want to dig deeper into if we do this again, but I did want to get it out.
Now I just want to talk about Legend of Korra for another hour, but
Right?
I gotta watch.
Julie, do the thing.
I gotta watch that. I've been wanting to watch that, so I've been hearing people talk about it.
Oh, so good, so good. So T, closing thoughts, final thoughts.
For me, it's not so much about the exhilaration. It's turning these heroes into people that we relate to. We were talking earlier about Man of Steel, and yet even with the exhilaration of the big climactic battle, I can honestly say my favorite scenes in the film were between young Clark and Jonathan Kent. Kevin Costner. That was the Kevin Costner that I was never a big fan of the Robin Hood Kevin Costner. I was a bigger fan of Field of Dreams Kevin Costner, and that's who we got in Man of Steel. In Age of Ultron. What was that?
Every parent says that that's their favorite part about the movie.
Yeah,
I really like with the child and the parents.
I mean, but actually, the scene where, in particular, the scene where Clark says to Jonathan, he says something along the lines of, "I just wanted to beat that kid up," and he said, "Yeah, he probably had it coming too." And it was just such a really solid moment that I never pictured Pa Kent saying. But Kevin Costner's Pa Kent, oh yeah, I could see him saying that because he was Elliot Ness once upon a time. But that was the other thing I really enjoyed about Age of Ultron. This isn't really a spoiler alert, but this was something that I actually heard Scuttlebutt about last week. It turns out that Disney apparently wanted. One of the things that they were coming to odds with Joss Whedon was that Disney wanted to cut the whole Hawkeye subplot, which was really, to me, like honest Joss Whedon, because we got to know Hawkeye and we got to know his family, and it was the same thing with all the other characters. I mean, we got to see Earth's mightiest superheroes stripped down to their inner core, to their inner fears. which is one of the reasons why what I thought was going to be the weakest of all the films, Thor, was, in my opinion, one of the stronger of the original Marvel films, because we got to see Thor cope without the hammer. And I mean, I love Branagh knows how to direct actors, and I still get chills whenever I see that scene where the rain's coming down and Hemsworth tosses back his hair and he grabs the Mjolnir and he pulls and it doesn't budge, and you see him just fall apart, and you got Patrick Doyle's soundtrack behind him, you got Clark Gregg watching him and saying, okay, show's over. Just what a beautiful human moment in this movie about the God of Thunder. And to me, that's when the heroes are the strongest. Like I was saying with Jared on that thread. Whenever I think of Superman, I always think of Superman in the jumper, and the only superpower he's using at that whole time is just he's floating, and he's basically just talking to the girl, and it's a genuine human moment. And when superheroes make that type of visceral connection with the outside world that they are protecting, to me, that's when they're at their strongest, and that's what I enjoy the most about superheroes.
I've been periodically muting my microphone because Luna is barking at imaginary intruders. Or it's not so much that the intruders are imaginary, except that they are only intruding in her imagination. There are actual noises happening. In any case, though, all of that's unrelated. My thought on superheroes is that, you know, I hesitate only because I feel like this is pretentious, except this is exactly the context in which this sort of thing is perfectly in keeping with the whole point of the discussion, which is to just say superheroes are like the modern version of, you know, the Greek gods and mythology of that type, I think, because it's kind of all about taking the confusing and mysterious forces that are larger than we are of our world, that are difficult to understand and comprehend, and trying to kind of create a relatable narrative to explain them, or to personify something as a person so we can understand it, and create these morality plays and narratives with them that help us to feel like we understand the world around us. And I feel like superheroes are a modern way to do that, with, of course, a healthy dose of just escapism and wish fulfillment built in, which I think is just an extraordinarily delightful mix.
Absolutely.
So, with our closing words already in place, I'm going to ask one more question, which I want just a yes or a no answer from each of you.
Good luck.
Nope, this is the rule. This one is hard and fast. Yes or no? Chris, are we at peak superhero?
No.
Jared?
Not in your life.
T?
Yes. To be continued.
Oh, boom,
Whoa!
boom.
And that's the final frame of this comic book. And the last frame is me saying, you know, close up of the mouth on the mic. Yes.
It pulls back. It pulls back, and behind you is a giant doomsday device. We are at peak super.
With Thanos saying, "Excellent."
Fine.
Have we reached peak superhero?
Find
What
out
does
next
the
time.
Morse know that the other panelists don't? Find out in the next thrilling episode of Peak Superhero.
Yes. All right. So thank you,
Same
guys.
Luna time, same Luna channel.
So yes, thank you guys so much for joining me for this. This has been tons of fun, and I definitely feel that we should continue. So
Absolutely.
thank you also to people who have watched us live, and in advance now for the people who are watching this recorded later with time stuff.
Words.
You know what I'm talking about.
English.
All
How
right.
is the future, people watching this later? Is it nice? I bet it's nice. We're in the present. It's weird here.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like meta and self-aware and awkward now that we had that great finishing point and we kept talking.
We ruined it. We ruined it. There's no going back.
All right, good night.